Uh-huh. Yeah. I feel like I could rule the world. I know I could be what I want to. I put my all in it like no days off. On the road, let's travel, never looking back.
Good. Yeah, I'm recording on my side. Let's do it.
Jeremy, do you know Sean?
Yeah, funny story. Sean was one of my role models back in college.
What?
Look at me now.
Wait, why?
So I went to college in the small school called Babson in Boston, and you know, most of the people there eventually end up in like finance, but the main shtick of the college is like it's supposed to be number one for entrepreneurship. A lot of kids were like really into that, and around Boston we like organized a trip to San Francisco, visited a bunch of tech companies. This is back in like winter 2013 or 2014, and Monkey Inferno and Bebo, like, you know, Sean was this like really impressive guy who we visited, and the office was spectacular. So
It's mostly just the office.
also Sean, but
Like, I think we've mentioned that office a little bit, but this is how I actually met Sean as well. And I don't care if Sean shouldn't describe this because it was kind of his, but he had this office, Jeremy, it was called Monkey Inferno. It could have housed, or probably 50 people could have worked there if they wanted to.
I think more,
maybe more.
It was really impressive.
If they had an espresso machine, they had, I think a cook that would come every day, like a professional kitchen. It had tables it had a table that was maybe 15 feet wide, and it looked as if you cut down a Yosemite tree and turned it into a table. Like, it looked like a $200,000 table.
The worst part was I thought that was every startup. So I was like, oh man, these guys are living the dream, like working in this dope office, and you know, and then reality hits when you actually move here. And it's like, oh, that is like one of a million. So,
Sean, do you think that place costs more than $2 million to decorate?
No, that's a little bit much. But we got lucky because, my main investor and the guy who actually started the lab, he owned the building. So he was the landlord. It's not like we were paying some crazy rent, to some landlord. So he had bought this building in 2008, 2009, right after the real estate crash. So he scooped it up for super cheap. I don't know, like a couple $1 million, I think. He got this building that was, at the time, 7 different lofts, like apartment lofts, and he just smashed down the walls and combined them into a giant live workspace. And he left one loft, so there's actually an apartment at the top. So it's 3 stories of office floors, but we only use the top floor for desks. The second floor we turned into like ping pong, like the classic, stereotypical stupid startup blowing money thing. It's like ping pong table, snack room. We created a weight room in there, like to exercise in. The third floor was wherever his desk is, and the fourth floor was just this loft, this apartment where you could just crash in if you stayed late. And so my first year there, I slept in that apartment 200 days out of the 365 of the year. It was basically my house.
Jeremy, yeah, I mean, like this office is amazing. It also had it had like a Mac 1 computer, like the first Mac.
Right. I remember I picked up a coaster once. So the story is, so Michael and Xochitl Birch owned the building. They started the lab. They had a ton of success. So they wanted to work in like their dream environment. So they built their dream environment, which most entrepreneurs can't afford to do. They owned the building. They did the renovation. They had this one designer, this guy, Ken Folk, who is like this like kind of designer to the stars type of guy. And he's like wild, like you have art behind you, Sam. This guy would come in every 2 months and just rotate the art. So we would come into the office one day and like all the art had changed, but you wouldn't notice because they're the same position, but it's just a different picture in there. And he was just like an elf that would like turn over the office with new shit all the time. And I was like, are we paying for this? What's going on? And I remember picking up a coaster and it said $700 on a sticker under the coaster.
No
is still
way.
on there.
Do you think it was $700 for one coaster? No, for the pack.
I think it was probably the rack, the stack of 6 or whatever. But I was like $700, and that was crazy to me. Like, it had mirrors that were one-way mirrors, so you would go to the restroom, and when you would look out the window, basically the mirror, the wall of the restroom, it looked like everybody could see you peeing, but it was actually a one-way mirror, and when they looked at you, they just saw a mirror. They couldn't see you peeing.
So we have to ask Jeremy who he is and what he does. But before we get there, I do want to say one thing. to you, Sean. Yesterday, I began fostering a dog, and I just want to make the announcement that if Time Magazine decides to honor me with Person of the Year because I'm doing this,
You accept.
I'll accept. So if anyone needs a dog, follow me on Twitter. I gotta find this dog a home.
Is it stray? Like you just took it in?
No, I signed up. I'm just being a saint. That whatever. I'm an angel. So I just want everyone to know that.
What are you covering up for? What'd you do that made you want to go out and do a good deed?
I'm just a saint. So follow me on Twitter and someone would come adopt this dog. Jeremy, who are you?
I am the founder and CEO of a company called Italic, and also a co-founder with my girlfriend of a company called Not Pot, both of which are companies in ecom. So happy to dive into either and share more.
And that's notpot.com, not pot like weed.
It is literally not pot. It's a American. I usually say it's an American wellness brand, but yes, it's a CBD brand. It's been around for.
No, but I just mean, how do you spell it? POT, right?
NOTPOT. So not pot.
Great name, by the way. Was that the first name that came to you, or?
I mean, I can't take credit for any of the creative. That's all Katie. She's the genius there. But that's my day to day. And
then Italic, we've talked about before. Amazing company. I don't know if we've signed the papers yet. I believe I'm an investor officially in the company at some point. I think it's an amazing concept. You guys basically, and tell me if I get this wrong, I might butcher it. You guys basically have high-end kind of premium goods. So it could be bags, jackets, scarves, a whole bunch of different SKUs that are the same manufacturers that do, production for Gucci and Prada and like all the big brands. And basically you offer those same quality products without the brand name label, and therefore almost like at factory pricing. So you become an Italic member. As a member, you get access to this like sort of factory pricing of premium goods. If you want quality, but you don't want to overpay 10x for the label, essentially.
Yep, exactly. That's exactly right. So to anyone who for what it's worth, we've never done this before, so this is the first time we're ever doing it. Like, for anyone who wants to try it out, I did make a code. It's MFM pod, I think, and you get a free year, which is normally $120 for a membership. I actually don't even know like how big this podcast is, so I hope I didn't just shoot myself in the foot there.
Break your business.
MF pod.
MFM pod. Yeah.
So it's italic.com/MFM pod.
Jeremy, I'm a customer of yours. I'm a paying member. I wish I would have been able to use this. I own your knives and a coat.
Oh, thank you. Well, thanks for supporting us. I will promise to keep supporting you there. But yeah, I mean, the idea is basically, I think when most people start brands or companies in ecom, like you normally start, you could be, if you're a venture type of founder, you're like, okay, you're 2 MBAs and you're like, okay, I'm going to sell XYZ online because it's a big market. Or you're like a lifestyle brand, you want to kind of bootstrap this up. But I think for Italic, really the goal is to kind of build this suite of tools and technology to empower manufacturers to become merchants of their own. And Italic obviously, does well by kind of building the pipes and the rails to kind of provide access to a global market. But to a customer, it's like a killer value prop, right? You're getting high quality products from the same factories as these really premium, legacy heritage brands, and it's well designed. It's that they're quality goods, but we're offering them at prices that are like 60, 70, 80%, lower than what brands do. And then we monetize through, to your point, the membership.
So it's like the Costco model.
Exactly, right.
And how big's the business?
It's pretty. I mean, we started about 2 years ago, and we just launched the membership, so we just crossed like the 10,000 member mark, and things are pretty good. Like most members, I think in ecom also nowadays you typically see like one of two things if you want to hopefully make it, and it's like you either have to be profitable on first purchase, or hopefully you have enough replenishment or frequency of use to come back. And really the goal with Italic, and also I think most of the times like there was this narrative of like, hey, we're going to start in this one category, like raise a whole bunch of money to capture it, and then hopefully like raise more money to enter into new verticals, and that like almost never works. So it was important for us to also start like pretty horizontal from day one, so we didn't get pigeonholed into like one category of use. So yeah, people are spending quite a bit. It's typically right now we're about one order a month per member, and members are getting to like $600-$700 of spend. And the first 6 months. So
That's
been
kind of
good.
amazing.
Yeah, it's been a good start.
Dude, I know successful ecom brands that have half those economics. So I think that's a very solid place to be.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing I will say though, for what it's worth, and I don't know if this is a good thing to share or not, but I do think most venture-backed ecom businesses play themselves up to be bigger businesses than the actual business is.
Yeah.
There's many more bootstrap. There's for every Italic out there, there's 1,000 plus, bootstrapped ecom brands that are doing multiples of what we're doing. So
I want to ask you about that. That's what I want to ask you, which is to name names. But I just had a quick question, which is, how old are you?
I'm 25.
Wow.
Yeah, prepare to feel bad, Sam.
I feel old now. I don't know. I've been...
No, you look young, and you speak maturely, but you definitely look young. It's very impressive.
So Jeremy, we brought you in, and I believe Abreu gave you the context of the pod. I don't know if you listened to the pod, but the context of the pod is we basically shoot the shit and brainstorm, business ideas, as well as just cool stuff we're seeing or businesses that most people haven't heard about that we can kind of break down and walk through why that business is really interesting. And so I don't know, did Abreu give you that context, or are you surprised to hear me say that?
I have a whole list of ideas to go through with you. I had to clear them with Katie, who wants to do who's my girlfriend before. So a couple of these I'm like, all right, you can't say that because I want to do that. But yeah, I have a big list.
Are you actually afraid of that? Because I feel like, Sean and I have had a handful of people execute on our ideas. We had one guy create a newsletter that we had really kind of went deep on, and he sold it for maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, within a few months. Yeah.
We've done it a few times, but in general, I would say the ratio of ideas to execution is quite low.
No, I mean, I totally agree with you there for sure. In fact, I think Trung had mentioned Italic as a feature, which I'm super appreciative of, in a Trends newsletter a while ago. But I think it was a Hustle newsletter. But and in there at the bottom, I think he asked okay, put 2 ideas, and I counted. I had at least 40 people reach out about one of them. And I didn't expect that, never happened. So I do think people do execute. I think the percentage, to your point, is very low. But also I think, in college, or at least the older you get in tech, at least, I feel the more you do value good ideas. I think in the beginning, it's ideas are a dime a dozen, and all that matters is execution, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know. I do think hey, you could be setting down a path for 5-10 years of your life, and if it's not a good idea, you kind of just wasted it. You didn't waste it. You learned a lot, but it could have been better if you did spend a little bit more time on the idea side. So I do think ideas are valuable.
So let's pop in one idea. So let's take one idea off your list and let's see what we're working with. Give me a B+ idea. Don't give me an A idea yet. I'm not ready for the A. Warm me up with a B to B+.
All right. Okay, so I'm going to pull up my list right now. Okay, I've got... Oh, by the way, before I got in, I think the one thing I was curious about to hear is is most of your audience kind of interested in building venture-backed businesses,
we talk about it. We talk about everything. We have a lot of people the venture-backed guys. They'll hear a story of a YouTuber making $3 million a year, and they're like, "That is awesome."
They're like, "Whoa, I got to start a YouTube channel."
And then the bootstrap guys who have a business that makes $800,000 and they pay themselves $100,000, they love it because Sean and I will talk about someone who did the X, Y, and Z. And now it's at $100 million a year.
No, you know why they love it? Because we'll be like, yeah, this business, they just got valued at $150 million. They're doing $7 million in revenue. And then there's some guy with an elevator, repair business who's like, we do $14 million. Does that mean we're valued at $300 million? And it's they're part angry, part curious about what the fuck's going on with these venture-backed companies. So there's definitely interest on both sides.
You see the transition once in a while, though. I think, between the two, with anyways, I'll get, so one of the ideas I jotted down at the start of COVID, when people started staying home a lot, was this idea for a subscription box. And I think, subscription boxes, I think nowadays have a bad rep, after companies like Blue Apron and whatnot. But I think for this one, it could be a niche. There's a huge rise in interest in kind of home cooking. So the idea was a subscription bread of the month club. So make your own bread. We send you the ingredients. You can call it Doughy, Dough Girl, Dough Daddy, Yeast Club, whatever.
I love that you came with the names. I like Dough Daddy.
Dough Daddy, that is a winner.
Yeah,
right.
So
hold on, let me go to GoDaddy real quick and see if I can snatch that.
Dough Daddy, I don't care
what my product is. The next domain is gonna be Dough Daddy.
Do you know anyone who runs a box?
Yeah, there are some that like have really flown under the radar and have like exploded.
Like what?
I mean, I think the best example I would just share is like, FabFitFun is like this company that I think venture investors have overlooked for a long time now. And I think it's just like, it's very consistent compounding growth. They've this year specifically, they really exploded, I think, with COVID. So
can I give you the background or what I know about FabFitFun, and you can kind of fill in the blank. So FabFitFun, I researched them a bit because so my business is The Hustle. We're an email business, or it started that way. I think FabFitFun also started that way. So I think it was they gave fitness and beauty related tips to young women via an email, right? So they built that up to like tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people, and they go, all right, well, let's make money in a different way than advertising, and they launched this box. And I think they've been around for around 10 years, right? And they're based out of LA. I think they raised a little bit of money to start, but not a significant amount. And they have since grown it to something like, do they have 200,000 subscribers or more?
I don't remember the exact number of subscribers, but like top line wise, they're in hundreds of millions.
Yes, and they send a quarterly box, right?
That's right. Yep. And the interesting thing they've done, and I think we've thought about a lot as well, is they've created lock-in, post-purchase. So right now, I think that the nuance with subscription businesses is oftentimes there's a number of types of subscriptions, but like oftentimes the product is the subscription. So like for Spotify, for example, when you pay the subscription, like you are getting access to Spotify, and that's the product. You don't have to pay additional. Same with FabFitFun, although they do upsell you. I think what we've seen with FabFitFun and even Stitch Fix as well is like they want to move towards one-time purchases that go outside of subscription frequency, which is always like, the grass is always greener. And then the flip side is like for, companies that are more transactional or like one-time purchase, it's how do we layer on more frequency of use, whether that's a subscription box or not. So
how has FabFitFun done that, do you think? Like what can I learn from them?
Well, what they've done, I think the common trope is like, if you're a media business, you should be doing e-com. And if you're an e-com business, you should be doing media. And like, frankly, that like 9 times out of 10 that like never works. It's
right.
And I would actually go as far as saying it's much harder to do the second, where you're e-com and you're trying to build media. But I do think FabFitFun has done that, in an interesting way. Like post purchase, you get access to a community that actually like retains you. If you try to churn, they'll actually like people will post like I'm thinking about canceling, and people will actively say like, hey, don't cancel. Like here's why. I'm still a member.
But what's the like a good community is like a good cult.
Yeah.
Which means you have like a
belief system.
Yeah, like cults all have like an identifiable leader. They have like an us versus them mentality. They have a unified belief. They have a series of rituals that you typically have to do, and they're inclusive. What is the belief system that all like we have this thing called trends. It has like this entrepreneurial thing. What's like the us versus them mentality?
Well, I think when it comes to I think in e-com you can either sell, one of, I guess like one of 3 things, and like one is, you can sell the concept of value, and it's like, hey, you're getting a good, bang for your buck, or you're getting like a deal that you feel smart about, or you're in the know, or whatever it is. And I think for FabFitFun, it is like the value sense. And, value is not like an easy thing to build a community around, but like there are people who are like really passionate about like saving that extra dollar. And even though they won't necessarily talk about it that way, I think that community like does bond around that. I think there's others where, I guess the other 2 I was going to say is like one is kind of around the actual use case. So I think like the best, recent example is probably Peloton, in which, people just love being Peloton users, and NPS is super high, churn is extremely low, and so on and so forth. But I think the third is actually interesting, and there's like a cultural one. I think, for and I'll speak directly with like our kind of counterparts, but companies like Glossier, and which is oftentimes touted as like the leading kind of skincare / beauty brand in the venture ecosystem, even though they actually do oftentimes less run rates than like the bootstrapped kind of lesser known brands. I think they put out this feeling of like, hey, we are this cool millennial girl in a big city, and we put out this feeling that it's like a cool 25-year-old, right? The customer set is actually like high schoolers. And I think I can name a bunch of other examples like this. Like Away, for example, I think when they started, is this cool millennial like product, got all these influencers, but the actual customer in the beginning was probably business travelers. So I think there's areas to build like an aspirational community where it's like, hey, I want to achieve that. And there's these leaders in our space, like for example with Away, maybe it was like Carly Kloss, or maybe with Glossier, it was actually the CEO Emily, who built that like aura of like celebrity. But I think that's actually the hardest to maintain, because customers are flippant and they'll kind of like churn out.
Can I tell you or say something about something you just said? And Sean, you might like this. So at the Hustle, we do giveaways sometimes. So like sign up for the Hustle and you win a MacBook Pro. One time we gave away a Tesla, like a $30,000 Tesla.
Wow.
And when we do these giveaways, there's these websites. I'd have to go and remember what they're called, but it's like Super Savers, or it's like, there is this, and we get so much traffic from it. It's crazy. And if you Google like the Hustle giveaway, there's these huge communities, and we get so much traffic from it. And it's mostly middle America stay-at-home moms. And they are doing giveaways like crazy. They are all about saving money. Like we have these socks that say Act Now. That's very coastal male branding. And they don't I'm like, normally if it costs a little bit of money, they wouldn't want that. But because it's free, they're obsessed with it. And like we have a t-shirt that says always be hustling. And like Bailey from Missouri, who's got 3 kids, doesn't want like an always be hustling shirt. Like that's not her mantra probably. But they love this crap. And this FabFitFun thing sounds like it's tapping into that community of this like stay-at-home mom, bargain hunter. I have been surprised. Another company that's similar to that is the pennyhoarder.com, which we talked about recently, which recently just sold for $100 million or 120 or something. It's a crazy community.
Yeah, probably not the best customer set, right? Because
I think even though the set like the area where most people chase are like, okay, I want to sell to people like me, right? So that's like typically for us, it's like bi-coastals, big city, middle, high income, leans left, well educated, so on and so forth. But I think the actual most consistent customer that's actually the cheapest to acquire is the middle American mom. And she's also a pretty big spender too. And if you get her loyal to one thing, like she's going to be with you for years and years and years. And I think that's what a lot of like venture brands kind of overlook sometimes, is like that's actually who you should be going for. That, I mean, you can make the comparison to like DoorDash versus what Postmates did, like city versus suburb, but I don't know. I think I would actually say they're a great customer.
Yeah, I totally agree. Sean, did you ever see the analytics for SoapHub? So SoapHub was our friend's soap opera news website. Have you seen the analytics?
I've seen you guys posted something about it. You did a blog post. I've seen what you posted publicly, because I met him after he sold it.
We had the founder of Bleacher Report so we have this friend who has this blog. All he did was blog about soap operas. And we had the founder of Bleacher Report look at his Google Analytics, and he goes, I've never seen engagement like this. And it was all middle America moms. I'm telling you, that market's good.
No, I totally agree. The middle America mom is a great market. The super save, what's the first, not penny hoarders, but the one you just said before that, the ones who
I just
basically
made that
are
up.
like,
I don't know if that's actually a thing.
They're professional like contest enterers.
Yeah.
That's not the best, right? They're the ones who are trying to leech your programs and be like, oh, cool, they have a referral bonus. Let's create a giant referral chain and like milk this baby. And so like
they work so
great.
hard, and it's like, man, this is like $8. Just buy it. It'll be easier.
And sometimes it's okay. Like for example, for Italic, your value proposition is value, right? You're getting an amazing good at like a fraction of the price that you would normally pay. So attracting the value shopper is the right move probably. Whereas if your thing is all about status, like for example, my wife has this e-commerce business, and one of the kind of core things that people do is collect. They like I've only ever seen businesses where you chase customers. You're trying to tell customers to buy from you. Her business, they do new style drops of like, a new product, every Friday, and people are lining up. So it's like an Apple, like an iPhone launch. So basically you have to implement these rules that you can't buy more than X of every product because it's selling out too quickly type of thing. Right. So I've never even seen somebody limit a cart. It's like, aren't you always trying to build the cart to be bigger? And it's like, no. We have it where you can max buy 2 items because, we have to, it's like, when hand sanitizer was flying off the shelves and grocery stores had to put a limit on it. That's what happens there because that's a collector's mentality. They want to get every one of the new like stuff that comes out because it's rare, and they will wake up in the morning early to be at their computer trying to get it within 1 minute of the drop. Like all the revenue happens in a like 120-second period, and then it's like over for the day.
I dig it. I'm into it.
That's a good idea. It's almost like, it's real scarcity, but it's also like by enforcing. I think the more often you like reinforce the scarcity of a product to a very active audience, like, but do so in a classy way, the better. It's almost like Black Friday, right? It's like, hey, you can get this in this very short bounded period of time, and then it's right. Gone, and you're going to have to wait another year. So I know it's a totally different comparison, but yeah, that makes sense.
Cool. What else you got?
I have so many. I don't know like how fast you want me to go through. I have so I have like venture tech businesses, and I have like more standard, like
that's fine.
Well, okay. What did we just cover? Just go A, B, A, B, A, B.
Subscription bread of the month. I think would be great for like someone who wants to just start something, and you can, start it small. And
why bread? Why'd you pick bread versus
margins are, you can, if you position it as like a premium product, or you position it as like a utility, hey, like we're skipping the grocery store, you're going to do this anyways. You want the best yeast, you want whatever it is, like here's a starter kit. I think the margins on that and the retention will be really strong if you can deliver on that. And it's also like, it doesn't have to be expensive. So,
and also bread's hot right now, Sean. Don't you know this?
Right.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, give me the trend, Mr. Trends,
everyone knows this.
Bread.
Banana bread in particular is going through the roof right now.
Everybody knows this. Everybody knows banana bread is through the roof.
Anyone who has
nobody knows. Nobody knows banana bread is through the roof.
Abreu, do you know this? Anyone who has an Instagram or a TikTok knows that home baking in bread,
Abreu,
particularly banana bread.
You can't use Abreu. He works for you.
Jeremy, am I right or wrong? Is banana bread like surging right now?
Yeah, John also said pears are the fruit of the year. So
yeah, I'm just jealous you're not talking about pears. Okay, so
someone actually did. I forgot. So I did see this in the wild somewhere, and I thought they did a good job with it. But okay, so that was one idea.
Hold on, let me tell you one thing I like about that, by the way. I think that you want to make brag-worthy products, meaning can the product after the consumer has it, is it Instagram worthy? Will they share this on Instagram or TikTok, the thing that they're doing? Because that's going to drive a lot of your adoption. And this is such a good one where it's like, it's an interesting thing. Making bread is something people don't usually do, but the skill cap is actually probably pretty low. You're actually going to be able to do it and have a good output. And then lastly, it's brag worthy. It doesn't look like a brag. Like if you bought something expensive and you share it, well, that's only a certain type of person would do that. But I think a lot of people would happily share that they're doing a fun thing today in quarantine, which is like baking bread at home, and happy with how it turned out. So I love the brag-worthiness of that idea.
I think there's a lot of like subscription things that you can do that are not like, you won't have fatigue. Like, the downside, I think, of subscription food, for example, or subscription apparel is like, it is, it's limited to quarterly, or in the case of food, like if you did, let's say you actually want to go out to eat, right? Like, what are you going to do with your box? You feel like you have to cook it at some point. So
right.
Anyways, I think subscriptions are super interesting when it comes to actually like product boxes. I think that another idea that's a little bit more, this can go either way. I think I listened to one of your podcasts, and I think you guys mentioned Sundays, which I love that business. I think it's like super smart.
You want to recap what it is?
Oh, so it's basically like it's a suite of products that like kind of provide lawn care. How do you put it? It's kind of like products to help people who have lawns take care of their lawns, and
to dumb it down, it's a Roundup alternative that has no chemicals and is DECI'd or whatever DECI'dified.
Well, I mean, for people who've lived in cities, I don't even know if they would know what Roundup is. So I think that's part of the whole suburban like kind of market. And
yeah, weed killer.
Yeah, another this is, I think, a smaller, total addressable market, but I think the basket size could be larger. Is doing a similar thing for pool care. The number of pools out there is huge. There's actually a lot of like software built for these pool services, and so on and so forth. But when you actually do research into the products that they use, it's really kind of gnarly, old school looking, chemical based stuff. So
that's a great
that was one idea.
Do you guys, first of all, there's this company called Leslie Pool. Did you guys grow up with pools?
No, I have one now. This is the first pool I've ever had.
So I used to go to this store called Leslie with my dad. I would go there, called Leslie Pool Supplies. All they do, it's like a relatively small rinky-dink store, and you go and you buy like a variety of bleaches. I mean, it was all pretty harsh stuff. They have a market cap, I just looked it up, of $5 billion. It's just a chain of like small stores. You guys probably didn't experience this, but if you have blonde hair, these chemicals were so strong that if I would swim too much, my hair, and if you're like a white blonde hair person, your hair turns green. Have you ever seen that?
No, but that's an amazing way to position an alternative. So there was a guy who reached out from the podcast, a listener who said, "Hey, I have a product," and I can't remember the name. Sam, you might know this guy also. He might have reached out to you as well.
Ravi?
I don't know what his name is, but his product was basically a modern day pool maintenance subscription thing, kind of like what you're talking about, Jeremy. So what he was doing is, in pools, they have this like floating little buoy that's kind of like a monitor. So normally the pool guy comes, he sticks this little thing in there and he checks the like chemical, the pH levels, and, figures out what's going on. So this guy had basically created a smart sensor. So like, it's just a floating thing in your pool. Anytime on your phone, you can go check the pH levels. You could see if there's like, what the temperature of the pool is, whatever. And then they sell you this kind of like chemical packs, a little like essentially like Tide Pods that you put into this thing, and it like treats your pool. And I was like, that is a great business idea, and he was doing pretty well. I think it's kind of like low 7 figures a year in revenue.
Yeah, his name is it's called MySutro. So mysutro.com, SUTRO.com, mysutro.com. His name's Ravi. He actually was a Founders Dojo guy, Sean. So that's how I knew him.
Gotcha.
He's a good dude. He's been at this for years. It does. I don't know why this actually isn't significantly
Feels like
larger.
It should be bigger. Yeah.
Right.
Actually, I think a lot of like this is like I think you guys had talked about like Constellation and software and like there's so and what was the like Service Titan or something. There's so many like opportunities in these like niche neighborhood businesses that you think are like so most people would think are so small, but there's like literally tens if not hundreds of thousands of these businesses like across the US alone, and providing like verticalized software. This is not I still don't think it's a venture business, but like building straightforward verticalized software for those use cases, such as pool maintenance, which I know exists like to a large degree because I did my own research on it. But I think you could do this for a number of those vertical. That was actually not on my list, but I can keep going if you want. I could kind of run through a couple if you want, or
yeah, keep going.
All right, I've got one. So I think Stripe Atlas, for those who don't know, is basically company formation as a service, and this is not new by any means. And plenty of people have done this, from Clerky to I think there's a new one called First Base and whatnot. Generally, it costs like between maybe $300 to $1,000 depending on the state and service. But I think there are verticals for administration like that is more niche, and you can actually charge more for. So, for example, trust fund administration I think could be interesting as a service. There's a lot of like, I think
Jeremy, describe Clerky, because I was a user of Clerky, and I think they've gone out of. I don't know if they've gone out of business, but it's kind of like on autopilot, it seems.
Yeah, I think so. I've used Clerky for 2 companies in the past, and
it was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically a standardized set of documents that you can use for company formation as a Delaware C Corp, which is what most venture businesses would form as, and you can do it for like it's so cheap. I think the danger with Clerky is like every founder out there who's listening, like who's new, the 83B process you like really have to be careful of. You just, I'm not going to explain the whole thing. Just like make sure you do your research and actually like file the 83B so that you are purchasing your shares. The reason why I bring it up is like there's a time limit, but Clerky almost screwed us twice on that. So that was kind of one downside with it versus an actual dedicated service. But Yeah, I think it's on autopilot, and I'm sure they're.
So Clerky is like they had maybe 40 documents that were standardized, but it had a DocuSign component, and I think it was $9 a document. And we had 36 investors, and so we sent this to them. So 36 times, let's say $10. So we only paid them $360, but it was one of those services. Sean and I, you actually just discussed this the other day, where you start using it, and you're like, oh, it's only this much money, whatever. And you just keep doing it, you keep doing it, you keep doing it, and it slowly adds up.
Yeah. All right, one more. I have so many. Okay, one is homeschooling software. I think there's a lot of, this is, I think, a significantly growing trend in homeschooling, not just because of COVID. I think COVID was an accelerant. So providing software that is, and I think there's a venture company called Primer doing something kind of akin to this, but providing things like attendance, report cards, grading, test generators, admin services, where you basically can run a homeschool for you, or even a marketplace of, having like dedicated homeschooling teachers. That was one.
So let's talk a little bit about that, because I know a little bit about this space. So I was a little bit surprised to learn that about 3 to 4% of like school age kids do homeschooling, and that was higher than I thought it would be. It's still a low percentage, but we're talking about a population of 2.5 to 3 million, and now with COVID, like easily double that. We'll come out of this, and so let's call it, you have 2.5 million customers, 3 million maybe as a round number, and that's just in the US. And they have a very specific set of challenges. So if you want to homeschool your kid, first, each state has a different process to like establish yourself as like a legal homeschool person. So I have a friend who started their business doing Stripe Atlas, one of the previous idea for homeschooling. So like, hey, just type in your kid's name and birthday and all that, and we will file the homeschooling paperwork for you. You don't have to figure out what the state of Georgia requires you to do for that. Then, so they got a bunch of people who were like, oh, good, because I didn't know how to do this. The second problem that parents have is you're supposed to document all the work that your kid is doing. So you have to like take photos of their worksheets and blah, blah, blah. So there's like a whole, like, where do you put those photos? It's just in your camera roll alongside all your other life photos. That doesn't seem very good. So you could build like, so that's the second part of the stack, is like the record keeping. Third part of the stack, well, what worksheets should they even be using? Are you going to create your own curriculum? Like, most people who homeschool are not like going to be creating a full set of curriculum with like really good worksheets and whatnot. So they need to access, what the heck do I teach my kid on a day-to-day basis? So that's kind of like one whole stack. And there's a company called Primer that's going after it. My friend Farza started going after that. He pivoted to something called Zip School, so Zip School basically is doing the Bill Nye the Science Guy live on Zoom. So what he did was he found all these teachers who were kind of like out of work or had extra time, and he filtered them for like who has the biggest personality and can kind of like pop on Zoom. And what he does is like, it's like after school education. So you have a kid at home, and whether you're homeschooling them and you just want for 1 hour for them to be with this digital teacher, or after school, you just want them to like learn more science or whatever. And all his topics are kind of like Magic School Bus or Bill Nye the Science Guy, where it's like, let's learn about rockets. And it's about like actually like what Elon Musk is doing with rockets, like something that's interesting that you don't like. It's just not the like cookie cutter school lesson, or like why sharks are not the scariest animal in the ocean, right? It's like stuff like that. That's like, it's very intriguing to a student. And then they have a teacher with a green screen behind them, and they kind of like live teach a class with like kind of like some low end special effects so that it's interesting. And all the kids are just kind of like on mute, and they like unmute to like say things from time to time or whatever. And parents pay like a pretty low subscription. It's like pay $50 a month for your kid to be able to go to 3, 4, or 5 classes a month. And so he raised a little bit of money from Andreessen Horowitz because there was a little bit of momentum. He was getting classes where he started with like 5 students showed up, and he was running Facebook ads, and for very cheap, he was acquiring users like, I want to say sub $1. He was acquiring users during COVID because every parent in America was like, shit, how the hell am I supposed to teach my, A, I need a babysitter, and B, like I need to like educate my kid because they're like out of school for so long. And so he was getting people to come in, and he was joining classes, and these classes got up to like 500 people. They were breaking the Zoom limit of like how many people can be in one session. And now they do like more like smaller group classes, I think, because people are more willing to pay for that. But I thought this was very interesting. The idea of taking the old Bill Nye the Science Guy model.
So wait, where are they at now? I mean, what's going on with that company now?
I think it's going fine. They have a bunch of teachers on the roster that each, this guy specializes in space, this guy specializes in science and surgeries or whatever, different topics. And they do small group classes of like 6 to 8 people, and of like after school education basically. And COVID still has like so many it's hard to know what's going to happen to this business post COVID. But I would say like this is like a variation of homeschooling. It's not pure homeschooling. It's either something you can add into your homeschooler's day for an hour, or it's hey, I send my kid to public school. They come home from school and like they want to watch TV and stuff anyways. Well, we could do this for 30 minutes instead. And I feel like at least my kid got like enriched a little bit. And I'm happily pay the equivalent of like $10 a week for to have this tutor basically tutoring my kid over Zoom. But it's done in an educating, entertaining way.
By the way, Sean, are you just wearing a robe?
Yes.
Okay. I just noticed that. I just thought we should get that out of the way. Were you like...
It's audio only, baby. I don't know if anyone sees these clips, so I just assume it's audio only. I'm in a robe.
All right.
All right. I want to get 3 out first, and then I'll kind of shout up for a bit. One is I'm personally, I think you guys might be into this, but I've been really into the idea of like franchises for a long time. I think it's like, I think sometimes I think people, in our ecosystem at least, like will look down on these types of businesses, but some of them like are phenomenally profitable and they're extremely capital efficient. And it's a really lightweight way to build kind of a brand and a go-to-market, strategy without actually having to kind of be a super rich, person to start or raise a bunch of money. And I think there's opportunities to modernize a lot of the kind of legacy franchises. So, for example, are you guys familiar with a company called Sonder?
Oh yeah,
the hotel kind of company.
Yeah, so they basically like take over people's leases and they manage the properties. And originally there's a listing platform to, they would take those properties and they would list it on like Craigslist, Airbnb, and so on and so forth and get, they would manage it. And then I think more recently they're starting to like aggregate the demand on their side so that people will actually go to sonder.com and then, actually book directly. So they don't have to pay the fee. I think they were like, the largest, like one of the largest unified listers on Airbnb at some point. But I think there's an opportunity to do something similar with actually fitness centers and gyms. The concept exists for hotels, like, you'll have like Marriott's or whatever come over and kind of manage the property. But I think gyms right now, like you have like a bifurcation in the market of like really low end gyms, which you might pay like depending on where you are, like 10, 20, 30, $40 a month for, or you have like the really premium gyms of which they're like, some in LA it was like 200 or 225 per month for an Equinox. And it's an annual subscription. And it's a huge upfront commitment. I think there's a mid-market opportunity to do something similar. Sonder is familiar to, I think, the US audience. There's also like Oyo Rooms, internationally, which has done this for hotels, but at a very, very, very low end budget kind of model. I think there's an opportunity to do something in the mid-market for fitness centers and gyms. Right now, obviously, it's like the worst time to do this, but it's an idea that I think is interesting. Along the same lines, I think there's an opportunity to do something similar in convenience stores. This is actually an area that it's like super unsexy, but like it's a huge, like there's so much volume that goes into convenience stores, and it's for an obvious reason, right? Like there's companies like GoPuff or whatever, but I think like they'll get to maybe 10, 15, 20% market penetration at most, kind of like what e-com is right now. I think convenience stores will probably always exist, but right now, like it's super, in New York you have bodegas, and like suburbs you have like 7-Elevens, but I think there's an opportunity to either do a roll-up. And the reason why I think there's an interesting use case there is like right now, convenience stores are retailers and they have to buy wholesale from brands or distributors, and they don't have any negotiation leverage as an independent, like as a one kind of man show or a small shop. But I think if you had a larger kind of supply base to purchase off of, that could be interesting. And you could do it either as a franchise model or as a roll up of your own. And I also think the McDonald's, you can tell I'm all over here, but like the McDonald's model, how like franchisees will actually buy, they'll buy the license to become a franchise, but then McDonald's will actually buy the real estate, and then the proceeds from the actual franchise will actually go towards the real estate purchase. I think that actually could be interesting because convenience stores have like the best real estate possible in like a lot of these bigger cities, and sometimes suburbs because they're in the middle of like a town. Sam, I don't know if you were going to say anything there. I think
No, my wheels are turning. I'm thinking. I'm scheming in my head.
This is a fun one. Like for anyone who runs an American factory, there's a lot of these like smaller kind of, let's say 2,000 to 5,000 square foot factories in the US. I think there's actually opportunities to create like really well-loved, high-affinity branded factories. And I know this sounds really weird, but like think Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. If you run a chocolate factory and you like did a daily show on like, hey, I'm grinding like, I just got my shipment of, cacao. I'm like going through the roasting process, or you could do it for coffee. I think there's actually a lot of opportunity for building brands online. I think Emma Chamberlain she's this is a very far-fetched example, but like what she's
Who?
Oh, Emma Chamberlain's like one of the biggest YouTube.
Yeah. I love this woman. I just discovered her.
What does she do? I don't know her.
She's just a cool. Yeah, she's just a YouTuber, but she's like pretty cool. I don't know. She's like, like obviously cute and charming and entertaining.
Like, what does she talk about? Or she just talks about her
like
life?
It's like a vlog. It's almost like a very
nothing. Yeah.
But the interesting, she like I think you guys talked about the I think it's cloud kitchens, which I love, by the way. I think like those guys are Reed and Night Media. They're also investors for Italic as well. But
nice.
Amazing people to have. But I think most times when people do merch with influencers, it's like it's crap. Like you're gonna buy it. Like maybe if you're a super fan, but like, it's a t-shirt, like what are you actually going to do with it? But I think when you do things that are like really on brand. So for example, what Emma did was she partnered with a coffee manufacturer who's really into coffee. She partnered with a coffee manufacturer and launched Chamberlain coffees. And I think like they're probably doing a multiple of what we're doing right now for Italic. Yeah. So I think there's opportunities to do things.
So we got to talk about this for a second. So Sean, this Emma Chamberlain, Google her. She's like 19. She's got she looks like this, I don't know what her stereotype is, like quirky,
likable, cute. Yeah,
I don't know what her shtick is. I watched a video of her where she rented a hotel room by herself because she wanted a staycation. And I have no idea why I watched it. It was a 20-minute series. She's just entertaining. She's good. Her tagline, Chamberlain Coffee, zero bullshit. Just coffee. Chamberlain Coffee, zero bullshit, just coffee.
Like it's like a legit brand now. When it started, it was kind of like a crappy Squarespace site, but now like it's a beautiful brand. I think it's like I think that's like an influencer / celebrity brand done right, and it's so rare.
So do you think, does she own 100% of this? Do you think? Because I'm looking, usually and I like to go through this stuff with the listeners. What I like to do is whenever I go to these websites, I scroll all the way to the bottom and I find out who owns the copyright or trademark, or what the copyright or trademark is. And then if you typically Google it in quotation marks, you can find out who owns it. Do you think, but I don't see that on her site.
I think, I don't know. I don't want to speak like incorrectly. But
how much revenue do you think this woman makes off this? The top line sales on Chamberlain Coffee. You think they do more than 40 million in sales?
No, I don't think yet. I think they started like last summer or so. So I think they're still getting there, but I wouldn't be surprised if they get there pretty soon. And the best part about coffee is it's subscription, right? So, and I think with these types of deals, like if you're a factory out there and you can say like your margins are already crap, right? Like that's the whole point of Italic, is to help you basically earn margin and kind of gain your own distribution channel of your own. But if you're saying like, hey, we can sell and by the way, for factories, like normally they'll make 15 to 20% on top of cost of goods, and this is like regardless of the category, regardless of where you are, whether you're in the US or China or Italy, it might be 25, 30% sometimes, but that's like on cost of goods. A brand will buy that and sell it for 10x. It's like normally. So if you even said like, hey, to a factory, hey, we will do a 50-50 revenue split, you're already like on a retail price and you match what's on par with the rest of the industry. You're basically like more than 5xing their margins. And that's not like a normal
thing. And in exchange, they give you what?
Distribution, which is the most expensive part of the game anyways. So, and I think I think that you talked about this previously as well, but I think like influencers are most are lazy. Like they don't have an aspiration to go beyond kind of like what they're currently doing. They're happy to do a promo, happy to do whatever. But if you made it really easy and it was just like, hey, like we have a designer, we have a, whatever. It's kind of like we'll build a business in a box for you, but it's actually like catered to you in a way. Like, okay, a good example is I was looking at a chocolate factory in right above. It was in Marin County, and like really high quality.
Why were you doing that?
Our manufacturers from years and years ago for not. It was originally chocolates, and then we moved into gummies. This is like 2016, 2017, but they went for sale, and I was like, okay, this is interesting. Might as well actually look. There's this guy who's like a sexy Willy Wonka TikTok character. I forgot his name, but just imagine like, hey. Literally put that guy in the factory, make him do a video once a day. He's going to be huge. Like he's already huge. And you could do like a golden ticket, one out of every 1,000, you get like $1,000 or something like that. There's all these, like, I think it has to be catered for the influencer, but I think there's branded factory opportunities where you have, rev share. And, I know there's agents who do this for like skincare and beauty, but like, I think beyond the standard merch and skincare, there's a lot of opportunity that's like a lot more interesting than, selling a t-shirt.
Did we talk about the Buc-ee's thing, Sam?
What is that? Maybe.
Okay. So, all right. So this is a crazy story. So I got a DM. By the way, this is the best part about doing this podcast is that I just get DMs that are interesting characters.
Do you have your DMs open?
Yes, my DMs are for sure open.
I had to turn them off for a little while.
For what?
I don't know. I just didn't want to read all of them. While you look for that, can we just say this Chamberlain coffee thing? I'm buying it. Or I'm buying this stuff. This site's beautiful.
It's great. It
totally convinced me to buy.
It's end to end like a really well done brand, and you rarely, even for venture backed companies that try, like it's very rare that you see that happen. So
no, they crushed it.
Sam loves cute girls and curly fonts, so he was in at first sight. All right, so this guy, so I met this guy Chris, and Chris says, "Hey man, I got kind of a crazy story." And I think The Hustle might have actually done a feature on this. I'm not 100% sure, but he tells me this story and he goes, so there's this chain of kind of like gas stations in Texas called Buc-ee's. I lived in Texas. I didn't even know about this. Have you guys ever heard of this chain? Most people, if you're not in Texas, you probably haven't heard of this.
Buc-ee's?
Buc-ee's, it's B-U, B-U-C
the gas station.
Exactly. Their gas stations, they're known for two things. One, they have the cleanest restrooms. So if you're on a road trip or you're stopping, Buc-ee's is a place to stop because they have the cleanest bathrooms, out there, let alone for a gas station. The second thing is they have a whole bunch of snacks. Like they basically have their own branded snacks in the gas station or whatever that you buy. And it's built kind of like a cult brand. They're an influencer gas station, if you will. Right. So you get Buc-ee's that has, this loyal following. It's like, every kind of region has their version of this. Like, I went to school in North Carolina and Cookout was like, oh, you got to go to Cookout and get the shakes or whatever. Like there's these little like regional brands that people just go crazy about. And so this guy, Chris Corner, he decides to start buying. He notices that Buc-ee's does not have e-commerce. You could buy it in the store, but there's no e-commerce. So he just starts buying a whole bunch of products from the store and then just selling those same things online. And he's just like, oh, let me test this out. So he runs some ads and basically he's like, oh, if you love Buc-ee's, like here's a way to buy Buc-ee's beaver nuggets, which are like their little like best-selling popcorn type of thing, right? Here's their chocolate covered milk, like chocolate covered thing or whatever. Here's their hat. Here's their mug. And so he just starts selling this kind of like, like on the down low basically. And so he calls it TexasSnack.com or something like that. Texas Snacks with an X. And I'll put the link here. But he starts selling it, and sure enough, the ads start performing phenomenally. People who see this are like, oh my God, I love Buc-ee's, or my husband loves Buc-ee's, so this is the perfect gift for them. They'll feel so good. So he starts selling this, and the ads start performing great. And so he's like, I'm spending X, and here's my ROAS, and he's showing me the numbers. I'm like, wow, these numbers are kind of like amazing for e-commerce. And I was like, so what is this just going to get like shut down or whatever? And he's like, no, actually, they reached out and they were like, hey, this is cool what you're doing. Like, we actually tried e-commerce a few years ago. Like, we spent $3 million like setting up e-commerce and it like never went anywhere. We kind of like just ditched it. But that's cool that you guys are doing this. Like, how can we help? And he's like, well, like, I'd like to, just get the blessing from you. And, it's like, as long as I'm like an approved vendor, this is great. And the second thing that he did with that was like, he's buying it at the retail price. So he's not like asking them for he's not eating into their business at all. He's buying it from a store at the retail price. He's just upcharging it from there for people who want it delivered. And he himself owns a 3PL. So he's like, this is perfect. I can fulfill this really easily. So I loved this little story. I thought this was like a very clever local thing to do. Basically, similar to what we had talked about with Ty Lopez, which is like take these established brands.
Kirk who reached out to you?
Chris. His Twitter handle is serial trep, like serial entrepreneur. And I was like, you have like 50,000 followers. How do you have so many followers? He's like, like I was doing some Bitcoin stuff like, a few years ago. It got really popular. John McAfee was invited me to his house for some shit and like kind of got blown up from that. But like, yeah, I changed my domain name now. I changed my handle now so that, it's more generic, not about crypto.
Okay, listen, I'm going to talk about something that a friend has been telling me that he wants to do. And I'm gonna mention it because I have to. I'm looking at sendeats.com. So if you go to texassnacks.com, that's this guy's website. You scroll to the very bottom, it looks like it's owned by sendeats.com, and basically it's a service that how do they describe themselves? They just do it with that Buc-ee's things for everyone.
No, this is the same guy. This is this is his company. So basically they're a 3PL, which basically just means they're like the warehouse and fulfillment. So you store your products there, they pack it and ship it out to your customers for you.
And in their about page, they say in 2020 they expanded to cold chain. Do you know what cold chain storage is?
It's basically where you're temperature controlled, temperature handled, right?
Yes, and a lot of insiders of this space, this legit food logistic, I don't know what you would call it, but I've been talking to some friends in that space, and many people have said to me cold chain expansion, cold chain storage is the number one category for growth.
Oh, it's crazy. You literally can't find a vendor for it right now. It's like I'm telling my parents have a warehouse in Chicago, and they have like a manufacturing business. That's our family business, but like I'm trying to get them to like convert their warehouse to a cold chain, cold storage.
So what can you? I don't really know too much about what that means in detail. Can you explain to me, Jeremy, what that means?
Why is it the need exploding? Is it a COVID thing or just in general?
Well, I think it's just in general. Basically, like and by the way, this is a really interesting area. I actually personally invested in this company called Airhouse. It was founded by the founder and CEO of Ship, SHYP. That was my first job out of college, and that's when I met Sean. So, anyways, cold chain logistics and storage specifically is you have to have it if you work with like a distributor or you sell any perishable product that is not like dry goods. So like let's say we're talking about Oatly, for example. I don't know Oatly supply chain. This is just a guess, but if Oatly wants to distribute that product to Whole Foods, they need to store it. And they'll produce it more likely than not in the U.S. right now. They'll have suppliers, wherever produce it in the U.S. They'll need to have a pickup, and then which will be a reefer, so like a refrigerator truck, and then that reefer will drop it. Yeah, that's what it's called. They drop it off at like that cold storage. So you have like those 3PLs like have to have that space allocated, and more often than not, it's like the whole space. It's not like half. And it's more expensive storage, it's more, but if you want to introduce it to Whole Foods, like you have to do it. And retail is just like, popped off ever since COVID, or grocery, not retail. Grocery has popped off ever since, COVID started. So,
Right.
And I don't think that's slowing down by any means, especially with like nowadays, a lot of the cold storage, fulfillment centers used to not do direct to consumer fulfillment. It was purely for retail. As a lot of these brands transitioned online for COVID, I think the need for direct-to-consumer kind of distribution went up a lot, and the cost of this is really high. And both in terms of shipping to a customer, but also the setup cost. So, right. There's basically not enough like cold storage in the U.S. right now for like a new brand if you want to start.
So, start this company. Don't quit selling pot, not or not pot.
Your parent. What is your parents' warehouse for?
They do. They've been doing like very heavy duty industrials manufacturing for a long time. So they've produced parts for like Tesla, like General Motors, like et cetera, et cetera. So it's like mining, auto.
So you were buying Tesla stock early. You're like, oh shit, look at this purchase order, baby. We got we got to buy in.
I was not smart enough to do that. No, well,
at least you weren't dumb enough to sell it.
Tesla, like if you were actually a vendor for Tesla, I think the irony, this is not from my parents, but I think this is just in general, like I've heard, is they come to you saying like, they're big, they're just like, hey, we're this huge company, but in reality, like the orders aren't actually that big relative to. I mean, this is a common story, right? Like Ford ships a zillion times more cars than Tesla does, but like the market cap.
I have a quick question, Jeremy. You are somewhat steeped in this VC world a little bit. I mean, you got your foot in it. Your family, would they own warehouses?
They have a manufacturing company. So they produce.
Were they
parts.
Born and raised here in Chicago?
Classic Asian immigrant story.
So yeah, and I'm stereotyping you, and I was right. So they're they're these immigrants who came here from, and they're the American dream, right? They started probably a small business. Maybe they had like some type of store, and they're like, oh, we actually should start making the thing, and they like have slowly built it up over like 2 decades, right?
Yeah, in this case 4. Yep.
Great. So the American dream, and pretty traditional, right? Of like doing it slowly. Probably, maybe they took a little bit of debt, but they certainly didn't have investors, right?
Yep. Just slow and steady. Yep.
Slow and steady. Is it lucrative? Has it done well for them?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think I actually don't even know the numbers, and they won't tell me, so I actually don't know. And
Another classic.
Like we're like super high income, like super rich. I think we're like very healthy between middle to high income. So
my question is this: how has your experience of like raising money and trying to like? I mean, I'm sure maybe they saw that and they were like, "This is outlandish. Why are you doing this? This is stupid." Maybe not. I don't know. I mean, that's at least how my family was, but. How has your experience and your friends' experience differed from them, and which do you think you like better?
Well, that's a huge question, actually. I mean, you could ask that to like everyone in Silicon Valley, and I think you get like 1,000 different answers. I think when I was growing up, I'm sure you guys like probably felt similarly. Like I think didn't feel perfectly, like the classic Chicago track, and Chicago's like a very specific market.
I'm from St. Louis, by the way.
Oh, nice. Okay, so you get it. It's like you grow up, you become an accountant, you go to U of I, you go become an accountant at a Big Four,
or work in insurance or at a bar or something.
You get married, and like your life is not work; it's your life, right? And your sole purpose is like fulfill your family's needs and continue so on and so forth. And I think like when you have an immigrant, I think another thing I will say is growing up Asian in the Midwest is very different than growing up Asian in the West Coast and also the East Coast. Like in the Midwest, like you're talking about like Korean churches, super like conservative, education is everything. Whereas if you grew up in the West Coast, like you have Asians who like go homeless and then you have Asians become billionaires. Like neither of those really happened in the Midwest. So I think for me, I was like, hey, I want to get out of here, move to somewhere else. And I think in the beginning, like it was 100% like just hustle. I was like, okay, go big or go home. Like that's the whole reason why I dropped out and did the whole, field fellowship thing and like so on and so forth, all of which I'm really, grateful for. But I think, as I get older, I think, and that's the irony of like being 25. I guess like I've been on this path for 6-7 years now. And I feel like ancient by now, but relative to a lot of the newcomers. But I think, now that you've been in the game for a bit, it's like, okay, the flip side is now like, I think when we started in 2014-ish, there were so many narratives that I think are no longer true today. So, remote, there was no way you could do. If you wanted to raise money, like you had to basically kill yourself to do so. This is like a 24/7 hustle. This is the era of like, I think the Ubers and so on. Whereas nowadays, I think like, founder, I don't know if it's because more capital has flown into the ecosystem so that founders have more, leverage, but I don't know. I think that the opposite, the more conservative, like compounding side of the business is, I think, equally valued now, not by investors by any means, but I think as a founder, it's an actual legitimate option. Whereas if you were in San Francisco in like 2013, there's no way you were going to do that, right? It's like you're going to look down at every company unless it was raising money. You were kind of always comparing, who raised more, whatever. But nowadays, like a lot of those companies are way bigger than ours. So I don't know. It's
Which are you referring to that's bigger than you? Like a Glossier, or I don't know who you consider a.
actually I love like the Glossier brand. I think they did a great job. But I will say like, hey, if you were Glossier and you were the founder there, you gave up like more than probably half your company, and you had co-founders or whatever.
No, I bet you she owns
Less than
10%.
Yeah.
I bet she owns 10%. I mean, that's a lot though. It's a $1 billion business, maybe.
I mean, that's true.
Maybe.
But then I think on the flip side, there's like companies like Milk Makeup, Deciem. I could name so many here that probably have achieved similar run rates, but they kept the entire thing, in-house. And when it comes to an exit, you keep the whole thing. And by the way, like you don't have to kill yourself day in, day out to like hire engineers, whatever it is. And they've achieved, and Gymshark's like probably the more recent example of this, right? So I don't know. And Gymshark, the comp you could use is like Outdoor Voices, right? Like, which is both are great brands, but like,
yeah, the woman who started Outdoor Voices was fired.
Yeah, exactly. So,
well, I think what your parents are doing is the more interesting path, which is like, the easier it gets to start certain businesses, and I'd say e-commerce is getting easier and easier by the day to start, the harder and harder it will be to build durable, successful brands. And the more valuable things like, cold chain logistics, or, being a manufacturing plant that's providing, that's building for, 50 different brands. I feel like that's where the durable value is, because it's very hard for little fish like us. It's like, oh, I got an idea, to swim upstream and go do what they do. Whereas it's very easy for, another person to enter the fold and start selling their D2C chocolates and gummies and shirts and hats and whatever else. And so I think that like the long-term compounding, most value is from defensibility. And I just think that like having hard to do stuff is much more defensible than the like kind of quick, D2C thing. But, there's something that doesn't mean you can't make money doing both, but it's like which one ultimately is more valuable. And I think, where your parents is at is actually where a lot more value is to be had. And I wonder what would happen if you took like a technologist or an innovator and who was like your parents probably don't wake up every day trying to like grow and expand and more. Like they're probably like, like running a good solid business every single day. And like, that's their mindset. Like, I wonder what would happen if I took away all your other projects and 25-year-old you took over your family business. Where does that business go in the next 10 years? Probably 10x and becomes $1 billion, like, industrial family,
People have done, I have a couple of friends who come from manufacturing families, and they basically like put out a consumer brand on top, and they're doing like, one of my friends started Outer, which is like the furniture company, and now they're doing like tens of millions.
So they own their factory?
It was a family business for the manufacturing. Same with Buffy, like the comforter, they bootstrapped for a while before, taking on capital, and that was a family business. There's so many examples like that, but these are just the three ideas that I wanted to share, and then I'll officially be done.
Cool. Let's do it.
One is, I think these are like the more controversial ideas, but I think like, nowadays you as a founder, you can actually have leeway to do whatever you want. I think Alcoholics Anonymous online is actually a really good idea.
We talked about that.
Oh, have you? Okay, perfect.
A little bit. No, I mean, go for it. But I think we talked about this a while ago. No, this is super interesting. And there's a company called The Tempest that was launching around when we started talking about this. And so they're actually further along now. I wonder, we should do a checkup on them.
Just to finish the idea, you were saying AA online, basically, digital mobile app or something.
It doesn't even have to be specifically like AA. I think there's like a million like specific, use cases. But I think the bigger idea was just like, hey, can you build a specialized community for support groups? And it doesn't have to be like an all-encompassing, generalized, like universal, here is a support group platform like Reddit. But instead, I think you can create like customized, productized like versions of each. So,
right.
In AA's case, like, you have the steps, and, there's a number of other ones for like mental health or whatever it is. So that was one. The second one is just following up on something you guys have talked about a bunch, which is, and this could go either in venture or lifestyle. I think, you guys have talked about like Andrew Wilkinson, like what he's done with the Capital Daily, I think is awesome. Like I think everyone respects that. I think the way he goes about building businesses is very specific and well known nowadays to him. But I do think there's actually a venture approach as well, in which you can create more of a democratized system of like, hey, we're going to find local editors in mid-market cities. For example, here, like Provo is a pretty big city around here. And there's like Boise, so on and so forth, and I think like a lot of those, basically the idea is like I think you can create a modern day Patch, which was acquired, however many years.
Yeah, well, their Patch is still getting after it.
I think the idea like Patch is, I think the reason Patch kind of sucks as a user is like the content is like not curated whatsoever. There's like,
and it's just a little old looking.
Yeah, it's old. It's like there's so many things going on. But if you just had like a paid, you monetize through subscription businesses as opposed to advertising.
I agree.
And like $1 a week or whatever it was. I think there's enough people in those like mid-market cities that you can actually build a sizable like multi-million-dollar run rate per city per country business. And your job as a venture company would be to build the tools to empower and source those editors, kind of like The Athletic, actually, as a good example.
Yeah, and if people are curious, Patch was started by AOL. I think it was like Tim Armstrong. It was Tim Armstrong. He was an AOL. Tim Armstrong helped start. Was an early Google guy, and then for a minute he was the CEO of AOL. Patch was his baby. I don't know if he started it or if he bought it. I don't know. I forget. But it was like a localized news website, I guess. And it's never gone out of business. And I think now they're doing tens of millions of revenue. But it was like touted as like the next big thing. And it didn't exactly become the next big thing.
Yeah. And then I have a bunch more, but my last one I'll just keep kind of short. I know... Actually, I'll just kind of like run through them and I won't even like explain. I just want to get these ideas out there. And if anyone's working on these, like, please do let me know, because I've been thinking about these a lot. One is, so actually, you actually mentioned the manufacturing piece of this, but I think Uber was probably the best like modern example of a managed marketplace in which like when you actually, I think you guys talked about this as well, but like when you use the Uber service, you're not thinking of like, hey, I'm like contracting Uber to find me a driver to use their car. It's like I'm booking an Uber versus Airbnb, where it's like I'm booking an Airbnb, but it's like a specific stay. So I think the concept of managed marketplaces actually hasn't ventured into business services as much as it could. A couple of companies have done this already. So I think Flexport was a great example of doing this for a modern day like freight brokerage. Xometry was actually the one I was going to mention that has done this for manufacturing. So they basically aggregated a marketplace of preferred manufacturers underneath the hood, so that when you place an order with them or sample or whatever, like they'll go and kind of allocate this order to the right person at the right time. There's also, I mean, on the 3PL side, like that was, I think, the past 10 years, but now in the past 3 to 4 years, there's companies like Airhouse, Flex, Flowspace that have built like 4PLs or wrappers on top of these. Channel Ape is another one. Pilot is one that has done this for bookkeeping. Bench has done this for bookkeeping. So I think managed marketplaces is a good idea. Financing for niches is a good idea as well. I think like if you provide financing for products like weddings or or even like home repairs or maintenance, I think there's a lot of room there, and you can actually charge a premium. This is a lifestyle business. I think if you built like a brand called Kids Next Door and you offered things like back to school products, lunchbox, composition notebooks, backpacks, I think there's a niche business there. I'm almost done, promise. Order via QR codes. This is like I lived in China a bunch over the past like decade, and this is an area where like every time I come back to the States, you kind of wonder like, where is the American like innovation in this? Why don't we just like all the POS systems have the ability to order and transact through QR, and then you can actually run the transaction through Apple Pay, Google Pay, whatever it is, Venmo, even Cash App. But all of them are local. Like right now, the innovation on menus and ordering has on quick service restaurants have like ended at a QR code showing you the menu. I don't know why anyone like Toast should do this. Like they should just connect the final step, which is like actually let them transact. And this is how like every restaurant in China works, whether it's a high-end one or a low-end one. Last one, group buying. This is something that does not like it exists in middle. I think the classic like Tupperware parties or whatever in like Middle America. But on the reason I think there's this company called Pinduoduo in China that I know a lot of people nowadays know.
I don't know. How do you spell that?
Oh, Pinduoduo. It is actually, I think, the craziest venture story you'll hear.
Yes, Sean has brought this up many times.
It's insane. But the mechanic that people I think oftentimes fixate on when it comes to Pinduoduo is like the group buying. I don't actually think that's the reason why it succeeded. They had group buying like prior to this. There was two companies that eventually like merged into one. It's a really crazy founding story, but like they focused on produce, and I think the concept of actually like getting one person in a community to buy bulk produce and then distribute it to like the rest of the moms or whoever it is, that's the primary kind of like cooker, I guess, the chef in the household. It's I think actually what led to PDD like doing really well in the beginning. So I think if you can figure out.
So how do the logistics of PDD work? So so definitely it's you buy in bulk and save. So it's like a community can kind of buy vegetables, fresh produce. So is it actually one person receives it? That's like one of the customers holds it and then distributes it out themselves, or does PDD deliver to each house?
It's changed over the years. Nowadays, I think they've built the mechanics so that the payments will actually happen like separately. So they'll orchestrate the payments and then they'll also ship separately. So it's just all about like lowering CAC at that point. It's just like, hey, can I get you to refer someone else at like now and then as opposed to waiting later. But there's companies like and earlier on, and what they did, like in China, there's companies called like Nice Twin, Miss Fresh, etc., where it is like one person who buys for a local community, and you get like a huge kind of bundle of product, and you distribute it locally. So it's almost like the basket size is enormous, and the frequency of use is very high. So group buying, and then this I know I said last time about this is actually my last one. This is probably the craziest one, but it's like if there's any like hard tech people out there that I think are like into this, I actually think this is a potentially like really big opportunity. This is the most out there. So I was thinking you could build like we know right now, like we have crop failures a lot, and there's also a shortage of honeybees. Like honeybees are actually like going down in population.
Dude, you're talking to a beekeeper in Sam.
Oh, are you serious?
Literally,
okay.
He's an actual beekeeper.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, anyways,
I don't know anything. I just bought it off Amazon. It's not like I can't tell you about bee stats. All I know is I had some bees.
The idea was basically like, hey, can you build either autonomous crop pollinators, which I think is actually an increasing challenge right now for.
Well, wouldn't that just be a drone?
It's like a drone bee.
Well, you could take it either way, but I think like right now the issue, like specifically with companies like Monsanto and whatnot, is like you have kind of like how do you even put it? Like you have spread between like Monsanto based crops as well as like non-Monsanto based crops, and then like that genetic variation can actually cross like it like there's no physical barrier to prevent like a crop crossing over. And there are the actual like service right now for pollinating crops is a beekeeper like literally going to a farm and like releasing bees and saying like, okay, and I'm going to charge you for the day. I think this is going to be continuing like, trend. I know this is really out there, but I actually think there's a big opportunity for it.
It's actually not that out there.
I don't understand the idea. So what would be the idea here? So you would do what?
Hold on. Listen, Sean, what you have to do is right now, if you're a beekeeper, and these are the people who I bought my bees from, you pay money, and sometimes they'll drive literally cross country, and a farmer will pay a fee, and a beekeeper will bring literally hundreds of hives. I own 2 hives, so someone would bring like hundreds, and they would place them in your field for maybe 4 weeks, and then at the end of the bees pollinating, because you need bees in order to grow the plant. So the bee goes from plant to plant to plant, and in doing so, drops seeds and stuff like that. Or I think.
It's drop seeds probably, but okay.
I don't know if it's drop seeds, but something happens.
Rubs the pollen on each other. Yeah.
Like it helps create more plants is basically what it does. And a farmer will pay for 1 month of that, and then the beekeeper goes back, picks up their bees, brings them home, grows more, gets more, and then does it again every year.
That's crazy. Like to pollinate commercial, like large scale crops,
You need
literally
truckloads
have
of
to,
them.
yeah, like millions of acres. Like this is actually how it's done. I mean, it's mind blowing to me. And the bee population is like dying. Like it's dropping year over year.
So what would be the solution? So you're saying a non-bee solution for the pollination?
Well, I think you could do two ways. Like you could do it like via like large scale drone, and I think like I mean you could do it that way, in which like you basically blanket a certain like set area. The alternative is you actually go like actually try to create like micro, I don't know if you talk about it like from the standpoint of like a robot bee, but I think there's ways to go about pollinating a crop.
Engineer a bee, basically.
You could even have you could even have like a standardized like robot kind of like drive between I guess the rows of a crop and like spray. I don't know. I just think there's an opportunity there. I invested in this company called Pika a couple of years ago that's doing like autonomous crop dusting in New Zealand. They never got the license, I don't think, in the US yet, but I think there's a lot more opportunity in like the commercial farm. Like there's all these like really, I know, I think Sam, you're really into trucking, but I think there's all these like opportunities in like farming that is just like as large. And it's a really, I mean, if you think about it, it's like critical to everyone, right? Whether it's vegan or
my friend, this is what I've been saying since the beginning of this podcast. Like sometimes people dismiss trucking and particularly farming. My parents are in that industry. And I'm like, if the truckers go away, you're not getting anything. And if the farmers can't farm, you're not going to eat anything.
Dude, no one's hating on truckers and farms. Everyone loves our truckers. We love our farms. That's not what anybody's saying. The only thing anyone's ever said is like, hey, if these trucks can drive themselves, you probably won't have trucking be the number one job in America. So maybe those truckers will have to shift into doing something else if the trucks drive themselves, because maybe we don't want humans driving 18 hours a day as like their, the way they live their life.
My point is that I just think driverless trucks is quite far.
The only thing I was just going to make a point here, which is like, hey, those industries are like, I think trucking now is recognized by like the venture community as like, hey, this is actually a really big opportunity. But I think the commercial farming industry is like, it's like as large, I think, as this trucking, and they're like really big opportunities that if you have any interest in business applications, wouldn't you rather build like, I mean, this is my whole thing. I dropped out to start a company in HR SaaS, and like no kid drops out to go and work on like HR tech, right? Like that's not what you dream of. But if your goal is to make money and that's like what you want to do through software or technology, like it's a really great place to spend time.
How are you? And we should wrap up in a second, but how are you spending your time right now? Because you have this business, Italic, which I imagine that's like your job. That's your 9 to 5 or more than that. But you also have this not pot thing. It sounds like you do all types of scheming. How do you?
Well, for what it's worth, a lot of these ideas are things that like I've just jotted down over the years. So it's not like in preparation for this podcast, I was like, okay, gotta come up with like 100 ideas. They're just things that I think I'd really love to see in the world or someone to take on. And, whether that's in the facet of being an investor or advising or whatever it is specific, I really don't have much time. So I just wanted to get these out there. And I feel like this is the perfect place to do it. In terms of day to day, it's like, it's like, how the startup founder grind is. It's like 9 to late at night. 99% of it is Italic. And it's Italic is like a really hard business to start. It is not something that I recommend to anyone. So please don't try to copy. It's not worth it. Believe me. I mean, hopefully it'll be worth it for Sean and every one of our investors and so on. But the amount of work that goes.
This is why I love pimping out Bitcoin, because the more people that copy me, the higher the price goes. That is the beauty of Bitcoin. And as long as we all keep doing that, we all win.
And last question, did you used to own fountain.com?
We still do. Yeah. It was like 80K or something.
Interesting.
Italic was more. So
how much was italic.com?
I think Italic was like 115.
Did you use a broker or what'd you do?
Yeah. We used a broker.
I mean, 100K. Look, how much have you raised?
We've raised about 15 now.
I mean, 100K for Italic.com. If you're trying to build a big brand, I mean,
Dude, please. He paid in cash. He just brought the briefcase for that one. I mean, 115K.
I tried equity. I really did. I tried to get the guy. The guy's had it since the 90s. Like, you know, I tried every trick in the book before I went to a broker and just said, like, let's get it. So,
right.
Yeah. I use my sister's college email, like, you know, all that stuff.
Oh, wow. That's smart. Well, I got to run. Thank you, Jeremy. This is awesome.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, dude. Good seeing you as always.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. A lot of fun.
All right.
And
see ya.
We'll share this. Talk soon.